Andretti Autosport's Patricio Award dominated from start to finish on the Iowa Bull Ring a week ago, cutting teammate Colton Herta's Indy Lights championship lead in half. Meanwhile, Herta patiently fought to second, passing with precision two-time championship runner-up Santi Urrutia, who is now desperate for wins as points continue to slip away in his third attempt at the title. Next, the Indy Lights Series goes north to the TO, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, for 2 rounds on the streets around Exhibition Place on the shoreline of Lake Ontario. And as Colton Herta's drive toward the championship and a seat in the 2019 Verizon IndyCar Series continues, Pato O'Ward appears to have other plans. Indy Lights, presented by Cooper Tires from the streets of Toronto, is next. It's the only visit outside of the United States of the season. One of the great cities of the world with a beautiful skyline and 2 races in TO. The Cooper Tires Indy Lights Grand Prix of Toronto. Thanks for joining us for a beautiful day, the second day of a doubleheader as we get 2/3 of the way through the championship. I'm Kevin Lee along with Anders Krohn. Well, Anders, every week it's something different and unique for these drivers.
Oh boy, and never more so than this week, because they went from Iowa Speedway, the tight confines of the Bull Ring last weekend, to now the streets of Toronto, which has so many surface changes, from asphalt to concrete, back to asphalt, and obviously you have those barriers around the track. Such an unforgiving place, and really showing how much diversity these drivers need to have.
This is race 2 of the weekend coming up in just a matter of moments. Yesterday, race number 1, Colton Herta, the championship leader, coming in, his 9th career pole. But Anders, he got off to a slow start there on the right side of your screen.
Yeah, and Santi Urrutia actually drove into the back of him, lifted his rear off of the ground. So therefore, Pato O'Ward took an early lead here. Aaron Thielitz up into 2nd, and Ryan Norman up into 3rd, and Colton all the way back in 4th.
But he does start to make his way back to the front, getting around his teammate Norman right there for 3rd position. And now working on Thielitz going around the outside, so Colton Herta gets back to 2nd. It looks like he can minimize the damage.
Yeah, it does indeed, but then in turn 5, hand slips off the wheel, boom, into the wall. And earlier that day, he crashed in qualifying and broke his thumb, so that's why his hand slipped off the wheel there, and just terrible damage to the championship for him.
Meanwhile, the Belardi teammates going at it. Santi Urrutia going around the outside with some contact on Thielitz.
Yeah, that was maybe a little bit naughty, and then just a couple of laps later, Victor Frenzoni, same mistake here as Colton Herta in turn 5, such a difficult spot, same as Joseph Newgarden a couple of years ago.
Nobody had anything for Patricio O'Ward. It drizzled towards the end of the race as well. O'Ward wins for the 2nd time in a row, number 5 of the season, and he is now the championship leader. O'Ward, Urrutia, Norman equals his best finish of the season, getting on the podium as well. Now, we mentioned Colton Herta. A broken thumb suffered in qualifying from that morning. In fact, Herta has made contact with the wall 3 times this weekend, both qualifying sessions and in the race. The thumb is obviously a big issue. Katie Hargett talked with the young American just a few minutes ago.
So, Kevin, it's obviously been a very tough and frustrating weekend for Colton Herta, who came into this weekend as a championship points leader. But first of all, Colton, I want to know, how are you feeling?
Obviously I felt better. A bit of soreness in the thumb, but yeah, we've done what we could. It's been a tough weekend for sure.
How did this happen? Because that looked like a crash that normally you wouldn't walk away with any injuries.
So it happened in qualifying yesterday, where I have a fracture in my thumb. So I broke my thumb in qualifying, and we tried to race with it and tried to qualify with it, but it's just putting too much strain. Yeah, so we'll do what we can in this race and hopefully see what we can do for repairs for it for Mid-Ohio.
But you told me earlier you will pull off on the start. Now we're going to start looking ahead to Mid-Ohio in 2 weeks. What will the rehab look like for you?
Yeah, there's not much time. I think officially it takes 6 weeks to fully heal. So, but 2 weeks is a long time. Hopefully by that time I can take the brace off and yeah, can just tape it up really nicely.
And Kevin, because of this tough weekend for him, he did lose the championship lead to his teammate Pato O'Ward.
What a swing in the championship. Not long ago, it was assumed that Colton Herta had a pretty good hold of it. Not so much anymore.
It just shows how competitive it is and how easy it is to lose your focus just for a fraction of a second. And that's exactly what happened for Colton Herta. And look at the consequences that's going to have. And the championship almost certainly going to increase even more in delta to Patricio O'Ward's advantage at the end of the day today, with Colton Herta only taking the green flag today. So huge impact in his championship. The only thing he can hope for is coming into Mid-Ohio that he has the strongest weekend of his life and he can gain some points back.
Colton Herta is strapped in. We expect him, though, as he said, to pull off in the early going to avoid any further damage, so Patricio O'Ward can take a further hold in the championship. Or can someone like Santi Urrutia, Aaron Telitz, or others make their way back up the championship order? Stay with us. We'll get going from Toronto next. Welcome back to the streets of Toronto as we get set to go for round 12 of 17 in Indy Lights, presented by Cooper Tires, the second race of the weekend. And they are ready to go with Santi Urrutia on the pole for the first time this season, and the championship leader right next to him.
And it was a stunning qualifying lap for Santi Urrutia that put him on the pole position. Always looked this season like Andretti Autosport had the upper hand, but that was an incredible job. And Colton Herta, despite the fact that he qualified third here, is obviously going to start from pit lane. Aaron Telitz on the outside of row 2.
Telitz with 3 podiums this season, looking to get number 4, and he's going to be essentially starting from the 3rd position. Herta, to avoid any kind of issues at the start, the plan is to park early and not injure that wrist. Will start from the pit lane. Ryan Norman equaled his best finish of the season, 3rd yesterday, and the hometown guy, Dalton Kellett from Toronto. And Victor Franzoni, who won at Road American race number 2, starts in the back. He had a big crash yesterday, and there's some questions that he may park as well because of financial issues. So we'll watch that. All right, keys to this race now, Anders, with Anders Insider.
This is the single most important race of the year to manage your push to pass. You only get 20 clicks of this down that long back straightaway. That's an extra 50 horsepower. Very easy to use that up too early. Secondly, the braking zones here are so difficult to manage, so continuously staying on top of your brake bias is going to be absolutely key to this. And the biggest thing around this place is the surface changes. We saw it catch out Victor Franzoni. We saw it catch out Colton Herta. So difficult here, especially when the tires fall off, to manage those surface changes.
Beautiful day today. Sunshine, temperatures a little bit on the warm side, a little muggy, by the 80s by the time we're done. But a great day for racing lined up. And away we go from Toronto. It's Indy Lights presented by Cooper Tires. Santi Urrutia gets the early jump. Pato O'Ward tucks in behind. Telitz, Norman, Kellett, Franzoni lingering in the back there. Telitz gets pushed out a little bit wide. The battle is for 3rd position.
Oh, and I thought almost Aaron Telitz and Ryan Norman were going to tangle, and because of that now, Dalton Kellett and the teal and black car on board with him right now. I think he's going to get a run, but look at this Pato O'Ward around the outside here of Santi Urrutia into turn 3.
Best passing opportunity. O'Ward will not take the chance this time.
And keep in mind here just the difference in mindset between Pato O'Ward and Santi Urrutia. Santi way back in the championship, whereas Pato O'Ward at the front. So I think Santi Urrutia can afford to take a lot more risk. So Pato O'Ward really has to be calculated here in the early goings of this race.
But Aaron Telitz smells an opportunity here today. He's right behind O'Ward. Norman had a strong car yesterday, and Kellett hanging in there. And there was some talk that Franzoni may pull off at the beginning. He's still on. He essentially parked it during qualifying. It's been an emotional few weeks that we detailed earlier with his friend, his teammate from last year in Pro Mazda, and he became a benefactor. Jeff Green passing away. The crash yesterday, basically they're out of funds.
Yeah, they are indeed. And I spoke to his engineer, Yancy Diotamalevi, and he said at this point in time we're going to run out of funding before Portland. But then obviously had the crash, and that put another big dent into that situation. So that's obviously not ideal for Victor Franzoni. You never want to race knowing that you have the financial things over your head. But someone that's not worried about that at the moment is Pato O'Ward, just so deep on the brakes there. Aaron Telitz with a lockup. You want to protect those Cooper tires, though. Little too early to do that lockup.
It's going to be something to watch in this race because the schedule got a little bit behind today with other series. 35 laps instead of 45, same distance as yesterday, finishing up the story on Franzoni. He had the Pro Mazda scholarship from winning last year, but that really doesn't quite cover all of the budget. It gets you most of the way there. After that, it's up to the team or the driver to raise the funds.
And I'll give a lot of kudos to Ricardo Juncos for committing to running Victor for the entire year, despite that slight shortfall in the budget. But obviously very little room for any crashes or anything like that. And yeah, certainly hoping Victor Franzoni will be able to see out the season with Juncos Racing, and certainly yesterday did not help that situation at all.
Ruti has stretched it out to a little bit more comfortable margin. The top 4 have slipped away.
And it almost looks like Victor Franzoni isn't even trying here. It's almost like he's just trying to get to full distance in this race. And here it is. Colton Herta has indeed pulled it in, and that is probably a very wise decision to save that thumb and try and heal that up before he gets to Mid-Ohio. Look at the extra padding they put on that steering wheel. That's something that we haven't seen it be that aggressive at any of the other races, and what they've done that for is to be able to have him to have as light of a grip on the steering wheel as possible, but still get a pull off here. Points as they run now. Look at this huge gap. Enough if things stand like this. And Santi Urrutia would actually climb back a whole lot in the championship as well.
But because there are only 7 cars in the race, Herta is not damaged as much as you would be in some other seasons when you have bigger fields. So it's still 7th place points. He started the race in case there was a tangle at the beginning. He maybe even could have picked up a position or 2 there if there was damage. But the other 6 are still on track and running. And, well, there is Franzoni coming down pit lane. Katie, tell us what you know.
Well, Colton did not get out of his car, although he did pull off to pit lane, and the radio transmission when he pulled in was, but we're going to leave you in the car because if Franzoni comes in, this is a good chance for us to come out and complete a few more laps. Then we'll finish 6th, not 7th, which means more championship points.
There you go.
But why wouldn't they just both stay out, even if they are not going to battle during the course of the race, because one of them has to complete more laps than the other?
I think from Franzoni's standpoint, they have decided that they're not going to win the championship, so the points are not as important to him as they are to Herta. Herta can still win the championship, and that's another one of the scenarios for Franzoni. He's told me before, we're in a situation where I have to win the Indy Lights Championship. I don't have the funding or the resources or the connections to be able to continue, and that's very unfortunate. You hope that something does materialize, but the reality is he's too far out to win the championship.
And you know, it's such a shame because, you know, if you think about it, he would be in such a good position going into 2019 to potentially go for a championship run. So I really do hope things come together for Victor Franzoni. He's such a talented young driver, one of the hungriest drivers I've ever witnessed. So to see him potentially sitting on the sidelines is not something that we want to see. And I know there's a lot of people in the paddock wanting to see him race.
Victor Franzoni has climbed out. So will we see Colton Herta back on track to pick up another position and a few more points? Meanwhile, up at the front, this one might be good for a while. Patricio Award is about a car length behind Santi Urrutia. Just underway. Race number 2 of the weekend from Toronto. It's the Cooper Tires Indy Lights Grand Prix of Toronto, presented by Allied Building Products. Thanks for joining us with Anders Krohn, Katie Hargett. I'm Kevin Lee. Santi Urrutia, the pole sitter, has led throughout. Pato Award has been challenging him at times. Right now, he's slid back and into range within Aaron Thielitz in that red Bilardi number 9 running in 3rd.
And I'll tell you, Aaron Thielitz actually been quite smart because he's been managing his push to passes a lot better than Pato Award. And Pato, I think, got a little trigger happy in the early goings of the race. He's down to 10 push to passes, 9 now actually push to passes remaining in this race, whereas Aaron Thielitz has a full 16 remaining. So I think Pato at this point in time has probably got some information from his engineer in the paddock saying take it easy, slow it down with a push to pass, because if we have a full course yellow here, then and you're fully out of push to pass, that's going to be a big issue. And Colton Herta now back on track. That's presumably just to get another couple of laps in so that he jumps ahead of Victor Franzoni on the charts.
Speaking of Victor Franzoni, he pulled in after 2 laps out of the car, and he's with Katie.
We touched on this story a little bit earlier, briefed you on the tough weekend for Victor Franzoni, but Victor, the Mazda Road to Indy Scholarship has helped a lot of drivers, including yourself, get to Indy Lights. But why the decision to pull off today?
Without them, I wouldn't even be here. So today, the problem was we didn't find the budget for crash damage, and yesterday I crashed. And we knew it could happen in any time of the year, and yesterday happened. And we still fixed the car, we put all the parts, but I owe money now, and I was not feeling good today. I was still thinking about the crash, and I still don't have the money to pay my crash from yesterday. So I just took the decision to park. I was not going to do a good race because my mind was not focused on the race, so it was not making sense to keep racing today. And but of course I'm still gonna finish the season. I'm still working to find more money to. Now I have even to pay my crash, but it's the life. I think I made a smart decision for today, and it is what it is.
How difficult was it to get to that decision for you?
It's difficult because at the same time I'm doing something that I really love and I want to keep driving. I knew I could still fight in the race, even with not like super focused. I think I still could be there, but at the same time you have to be smart. I can break my life and my family's life forever, so I put everything on the scale, and the best thing was park today.
Guys, it was an honorable decision by Victor Franzoni, but you can obviously see the emotion on his face, the tears in his eyes. His hands are shaking. Victor, we look forward to seeing you in Mid-Ohio.
I feel for him. Difficult decision. However, it probably is the smart decision to save the funding.
It for sure is, and to kind of give you a little bit of insight of how it is to be a driver with lack of funding and having that hanging over your head, it's essentially like being a jet fighter and thinking that your jet might break at any point in time. If you drive around with that weight on your shoulders, you're not going to be able to be the jet fighter or the best race car driver in this particular case, because you're not going to push the car to the absolute limit. When you're out there on the track, and I guarantee you the way Pato O'Ward, Santi Urrutia, and Aaron Thielitz is driving right now, they are driving as if they cannot fail. They have this self-confidence, this belief in them that nothing will fail around me, knowing, yes, it absolutely can, but feeling like, hey, if something were to happen, I'm going to be able to recover, I'm going to be able to push ahead. But when you have that hanging over your head, you're just not able to extract the 10 tenths that you need to do. And even though we have a small field in Indy Lights here, I guarantee you, Victor Franzoni, if he drove completely free of that burden, completely free off that weight off his back, he'd be 2, 3, 4 tenths a lap quicker, just because you are able then to break that little bit deeper, to risk a little bit more with the wall coming off a corner, and just do everything a little bit more aggressively. So that is indeed the mindset, and I really do feel for Victor Franzoni because he's so talented. I really hope something comes together for him.
And from starting in last position, the reality was, if you can't take chances, you're not going to get to the front. If somehow he'd been on pole, maybe a different story. He could just run quick laps and potentially stay out front. You saw Colton Herta, he's climbed out of the car, completed 2 more laps, so he'll pick up a few more points and finish in 6th position. So as points stand now, I think the graphic that we saw earlier, I think it's a bigger gap than that.
Wow, yeah, so this would be absolutely huge here. And points awarded for a race win, 30 for a race win. Then you get 1 point for pole position, 1 point for fastest lap, and 1 point for most laps led. So if you have a clean sweep of a race, that's 33 points on a road course. Now on an oval, you get 50% more points. So coming to Gateway Motorsports Park, that could potentially be a huge swing back in the direction of Colton Herta if he has a clean run, were to win that race, and Pato O'Ward were to have a hiccup. So I still think there's a lot to play for here with Mid-Ohio coming up with a doubleheader. Then you have Gateway Motorsports Park and then Portland International Raceway. So it may seem like a big gap, and certainly if you were to get on a roll starting in Mid-Ohio, things can happen.
Pato O'Ward, championship leader, running 2nd, close enough. This one's not done yet. Let's see what he has for Santi Urrutia. Aaron Thielitz is also in the picture. Stay with us from the streets of Toronto for Indy Lights on NBCSN. Race number 2 of the weekend for Indy Lights on the streets of Toronto. Santi Urrutia started on pole. He has led all 13, soon to be 14 laps completed. The championship leader, Pato O'Ward, is in 2nd. And then Aaron Thielitz in 3rd, and they've got a nice big gap, over 11 seconds back to Ryan Norman, and Dalton Kellett also trying to catch up to the rest of the crowd. All right, we've told Colton Herta's story a little bit from the driver's perspective. We heard from him before the race. Let's hear from the also young owner, George Michael Steinbrenner, with Katie.
And Kevin, this is usually the point in the season where we start talking about the Indy Lights guys moving up to the Verizon IndyCar Series. George, that's been a conversation all season long for you and Colton Herta. If he doesn't win the championship, what are the chances of still moving up?
We don't think that the championship particularly hinges on winning the championship. It's $1 million grant from Mazda. It goes a very long way. But obviously for us, winning the championship would be huge because we're competitors. We want to win week in and week out, and it was certainly a tough weekend, but Colton's safety is priority number one, and you saw it with Joseph a couple years ago in IndyCar. This is a tough place to not be 100%, so we wanted to just stay out just enough to be ahead of Franzoni, but that's as far as we wanted to push it.
Rumors are already swirling about what teams you're talking about. Is it Ray Hall Letterman? Is it Andretti Autosport? I won't make you tell me just now, but what are the prospects for you guys?
We have a couple. It's a good position for us. Colton spurred some interest, and we've spurred some interest. We've got a good partner base together, and trying to find the final pieces to get full-time in IndyCar next season.
Do you think those final pieces could come together? Could we have an announcement before the season's even over?
We think that we definitely want to be done by before season's end, so that's certainly a conservative estimate.
There's some very interesting news coming out before this season's up, Kevin.
Oh, there are a lot of things happening in the IndyCar paddock. It obviously impacts Indy Lights. Some of these Indy Lights drivers we might see in an IndyCar before the end of this season. With Harding Racing, they have Connor Daly in the car this week, and they're essentially looking at the rest of the year as testing to try to improve their program, potentially grow it to 2, and specifically they're interested in several Indy Lights drivers.
Yeah, and I think that's just so good that they're looking at the official feeder series as opposed to going elsewhere, and I think you have some seriously good drivers in here that are ready to make the step up. Santi Arruti right now, and today he is genuinely blowing me away, and I think the job he's doing on the track right now is more impressive than it might look, because in Indy Lights, the push to pass, you're not able to use that in defense, so it means that the only people able to use the push to pass is Pato Ward and Aaron Kielitz, and they're able to use that down that long straightaway. The one big advantage Santi Arruti is going to have here is Pato Ward only has 3 pushes left, and Aaron Kielitz only has 7 pushes left, so pretty soon they're going to be out of those 50 extra horsepower, and I think at that point Santi Arruti is just going to be gone. So the job he's doing today is sort of finally what we expected to see from him in his 3rd year in Indy Lights. He's been so ready and so competitive, and I think arguably after his 1st year in Lights he was ready to make the move up to the Verizon IndyCar Series. I certainly think that's the case now, and the same, to be honest, can be said for Pato Ward. The job he's done this year in Indy Lights has just been tremendous.
Arrutia, Award, and Herta have all been mentioned as possibilities, either testing or racing as well with Harding. And Aaron Tielitz, who we see there running in 3rd in the red number 9 Bilardi car, had a really good test with Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports on the road course at Indy.
Yeah, he impressed a lot of people at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Did a very, very fine job, and I actually think that car seemed to fit his driving style very, very well. It's a little bit of a different driving style compared to the Indy Lights car. With a Firestone tire, it drives a little bit differently, but it certainly looked to suit his driving style. So I think all of these guys could do a great job, and it just shows. Look at the speed Mateus Laced has shown in the Verizon IndyCar Series this year. He's done a great job in his move up. Kyle Kaiser as well, ISM Raceway. That qualifying session they had there was just incredible. So I think it just shows the tremendous strength of the Mazda Road to Indy at the moment. And then you also have USF 2000 and Pro Mazda, which put on 2 incredible races this weekend.
You mentioned Kyle Kaiser. He swept the doubleheader last year. This will be the first time in 4 years that the winner hasn't swept. It was Felix Rosenquist, whose name is being mentioned again next year for IndyCar in 2016. Spencer Pigot in 2015. Looked up the winners as well, and the winners of this race also include a couple of our colleagues. Townsend Bell in 2001. Paul Tracy won in Indy Lights in 90, and of course 2 more times in IndyCar. Well, George Michael was talking about the crash that Colton Herta had in the race after already suffering a broken thumb. Mentioned Joseph Newgarden. He dealt with this a few years ago when dealing with a broken thumb. How difficult is this, and how easy is it just to have the steering wheel slip out of your hands?
And you can just hear the sheer force of the impact there up against the barrier. He's lucky actually that his hand slipped off the wheel there, because had he held on, it would have almost certainly broken his wrist. So it's one of the most difficult corners on the IndyCar and Indy Lights schedule, because you come over this slight crest of the hill, and then suddenly you're going down a bit of a hill and onto concrete, and there's a huge lump on the inside that acts as the curbing, and the way that it kind of upsets the car, it jerks the steering wheel so aggressively. So if you don't have a firm grip on the wheel, or the car is pointed the exact right direction, it can snap the wheel right out of your hands, as we saw with Joseph Newgarden a couple of years ago.
Santi Arrutia in his 3rd year in Indy Lights. He's been the runner-up the last 2 years. It's going to be difficult for him to catch back up, but He's in position to be 40 points back, so I would say this weekend has put him legitimately back in the championship fights.
And never say never, but I think it's going to be another situation at the end of this season where Santi Urrutia and Bilardi Auto Racing are going to look at it and say, man, there were a couple of opportunities where we could have gathered a little bit more points that we threw away, but in general, they've really struggled pace-wise to match that of Andretti Autosport and Pato O'Ward and Colton Herta this year. I mean, they have pushed as hard as they possibly could to match them, and things just haven't fully aligned. And I can only imagine the mentality for Santi Urrutia, who felt like he was essentially robbed of the Indy Lights Championship 2 years in a row, and now feels like, man, I might miss out on it for a third year.
Well, we watched Santi Urrutia dominate this race. We see his teammate running in third position, and maybe it's a chance to mention Steven Simpson, who's been helping out with Bilardi for a few years, former Indy Lights driver. He recently has really hit the scene in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship for JDC Miller Motorsport, and an overall win at Watkins Glen a few weeks ago.
That was a huge win at the 6 Hours of Glen race with Misha Goikhberg and his other co-driver Chris Miller. It was a brilliant win, and it was just incredible to see them as a small privateer team really take it to the factory teams of Acura and Cadillac and such, and the way they put that race together was incredible. And yeah, Steven Simpson, man, he's a great driver and also just so analytical, so good with the drivers in developing them.
A really good story. Looked like his career is over. He came back, and now he's making go of it sports cars. Well, he helps out the Bilardi drivers, and Santi Urrutia is in charge right now on the streets of Toronto. The concrete jungle, the streets of Toronto. They have already collected a few over the weekend. So far in this one, it's been clean and green, but only 5 remaining because of circumstances from earlier in the weekend. Colton Herta, a broken thumb. He parked early. 3 crashes on the weekend. Victor Franzoni, a very financially damaging crash yesterday. He also pulled off after a lap. But no issues for Santi Urrutia. He finished second yesterday despite a couple of mishaps in the race, and he looks like he's on the way to a win here today. Will Pato O'Ward have anything to say? How much can Pato O'Ward push it this much, knowing that he has a very nice lead in the championship?
I tell you, I saw Michael Andretti on this timing stand a little bit ago, and I bet you he's going to be all over the radio of Pato saying, just conserve your equipment, don't be too aggressive here. Santi Urrutia has the upper hand in this race, but you have the upper hand big time now in the championship. So if I'm Pato O'Ward, I am not going to risk my car any bit whatsoever. I'm just going to cruise home and try and collect the second place here. So Santi Urrutia really at this point just needs to dial it back and make sure he's not locking up his wheels, saving his tires a little bit, because if there happens to be a full course yellow at the end of this race, he wants to have some tire life left in these Cooper tires, which, keep in mind, Indy Lights, ideally you will not make any pit stops during the course of these races, and these are longer stints than an IndyCar stint, so 35 full laps on one set of tires, very difficult to manage.
What's that section like there? That's changed a little bit, tweaked a little bit over the years.
Oh, it's changed big time, because essentially pit lane used to be on driver right-hand side just a couple of years ago, and then because of the building of a new hotel, the Hotel X that's now inside the track, they had to then move the track to the other side and the pit lane to the inside of the track, so it's completely changed. And it used to be this sort of fast-flowing, semi-smooth section, but now it's this super tight, super off-camber, super bumpy section, and I know it's less flowy and less fun for the drivers, but I think it's much more technically demanding now. So I actually prefer this layout, because you have to be so perfect with the positioning of your car through turn 9, 10, 11.
Now we need to clear up the championship standings. We've given you a couple of different numbers today. It's almost as if I'm in charge of the math, which is not my strong suit. But I'm told this is accurate now. So we had some information at one point that Colton would be 32 back. Not so bad. So those on the Andretti Steinbrenner pit can rest a little bit easier and feel that, all right, this is more within range. Doesn't change Santi Urrutia's situation. I still think that is possible for him to get back. But really, Colton Herta is just a couple of results back from from being right in this.
He is, but I think the only thing on his mind needs to be, I need to start winning Mid-Ohio. I need to dominate that race weekend. And frankly, I need to dominate the rest of the season. That's the only way he'll guarantee himself a shot at the championship.
Well, one owner is quite pleased with the way things are going today. He's got a chance at 2 podium cars. Katie is with him.
And how could he not be pleased when Santi Arruti is out to a nearly 3-second lead? So we're going to catch up with Brian Velarde. Brian, what's going right for Santi Arruti today?
Well, he's driving with tremendous rhythm. The engineers have given him a great car, the crew members as well. You know, in these street courses, it is about rhythm and getting the car right. And Santi certainly has that today, and as well as Aaron. He's been able to hold off Pato with all his push to passes, so we're pretty happy with that. You know, hopefully we can get Aaron attacking now too, these last 10 laps or so, and try and get a Velarde one too.
This is Santi's 3rd season in Indy Lights. This would be his 2nd win of the season. When you look forward down the line, what can you do to help Santi get closer up in the championship battle?
Well, we just need to keep winning races right now, and everything will come to us. But that's the most important thing. It's unfortunate what happened to Colton this weekend. A tremendous amount of pain, I imagine. So we hope he gets better soon. But it's really, we got to focus on our program and Santi and Aaron and just move forward and keep trying to win races.
This will by far be the best weekend so far of the season for them, Kevin.
He's in line to pick up his 8th career win in Indy Lights, which would move him into a tie for 5th on the all-time win list. We mentioned Townsend Bell once. We can mention him twice. He's tied with Brian Herta, a 2-time winner here in Indy Lights in Toronto, and Wade Cunningham as well. So it's Arrutia by 2.5 seconds on Award, and Thielen's another second or so back, and then way back to Ryan Norman. And Dalton Kellett running in 5th, and Anders can take us for a lap on board.
And it's my favorite bit of all these broadcasts, getting to get this onboard view and into turn 1. It's tough on the brakes. Look at this, onto the concrete. The car gets completely light, but he had to just let it drift out to the outside barrier. And now it's just a matter of hammer down through turn 2 and now down Lakeshore Boulevard. Look at how long this run is. Now we're going to come up to a bridge here. That's roughly where the braking point is. Let's hear it. On the brakes, down from 6th to 2nd, then a big uphill. Got to use this inside gutter to get good traction off turn 3, and now coming up to turn 5, most difficult corner on the track. Got to get a little bit of that curb, get the car rotated, and now for turn 6, a long sweeper. So important to be smooth with the throttle application here. 3rd, 4th, and back up to 5th, and now turn 8 is a downhill brake zone, and then onto concrete yet again. Car gets super light, and Dalton Kellett almost goes off track here on our onboard lap, and now to finish out the lap, turn 9, look at how bumpy again it is, and then big crest here off camber. Now coming up to the final corner, gotta stay committed to the throttle here, use all the room on exit. That's a lap of Toronto, and it is just so brutal from a driver perspective. This place beats you up like no other place on the schedule, and you can just see Dalton Kellett hanging onto it this late in the going.
He's enjoying racing in his hometown in front of family and friends, a graduate of Queen's University in Ontario with an engineering degree in physics. And you see on the side pod there the 1080 education sticker. That was something that was announced this week, that Dalton Kellett is very much involved in the STEM program of trying to interest kids in learning some things about science and math and technology, and again, some things I'm challenged with.
I was just going to say I had the opportunity to work with Dalton Kellett when he raced Pro Mazda back in 2014, 2015, and it was just incredible the technical understanding he has of what's going on in the car, and just the high-level conversations he can have with the engineering crew. It is just on another level. I remember opening up one of his books at one point, and it was quantum physics, and his understanding for it, I mean, he reads it like nothing else. And I think the really cool thing about Dalton Kellett, and part of the reason why I think he's actually done so well on the ovals, is he's almost a bit like a computer in the way of you provide him with the information and he will do exactly what you tell him. And so I talked to a couple of his crew members, and they said that's exactly what he did for his pole run for the Freedom 100 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They said, well, go into this corner, you'll upshift to that gear, then going through that other corner, you'll downshift one gear to get the run down the back straight. That's exactly what he did, and because of it, he got the pole position. So, a lot of brains there for Dalton Kellett, and very, very smart indeed.
Meanwhile, back up front, it has tightened a little bit. Pato Award has cut about a second into Santi Arrutia's lead, so Not totally in the clear yet. Stay with us for the finish of race number 2 of the weekend in Indy Lights from the streets of Toronto. Fans enjoying IndyCar, Indy Lights, the entire Mazda road to Indy. Their only visit outside of the U.S. this season in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It's always great to be here. This is always one of our favorite visits of the year. We can just about say that really every weekend, because every weekend is so unique. What a great city. The weather has been good. And it's been a good weekend for Pato Award and Santi Urrutia as well. Award won yesterday. Urrutia is in line to win today.
Yeah, and I tell you what, though, there's almost no other place on the planet where race fans truly understand the sport as well as they do here in Toronto. It's not just IndyCar drivers they know. They know the Indy Lights driver, but more so than that, they also know the USF 2000 and the Pro Mazda drivers on the Mazda Road to Indy ladder. So it's just great to see the fan turnout and support for it here in Toronto.
Action-packed weekend. There is never more than about 7 to 10 minutes without cars on the track. The entire Mazda Road to Indy in action this weekend with double headers. And in USF 2000, pretty easy to keep track of that. Kyle Kirkwood has now won 7 races in a row after sweeping this weekend.
Yeah, and it's been incredible to see his run ever since the first weekend. Really, you could tell that he was going to get on a run, and since then he's just been more mature than his competition, I think, in putting these races together. Even when he struggled just a bit for pace, he's been able to put the races together. But in Pro Mazda, however, whereas he's completely dominated USF 2000, Pro Mazda has been so up and down, and every single weekend we haven't had any idea as to who's going to come away with the race wins. But this weekend, Rinus VeeKay just dominated from beginning till end. In practice, super strong, qualified on pole position for both races and ran away with both races. And championship leader Parker Thompson, who had a huge lead in the championship coming into this weekend, he had 2 very, very difficult races, not able to finish either of those on the lead lap, and as a result, I think that championship is now close right up. So it's going to be great to watch to the end of the season in Pro Mazda as well. It is going to be very closely fought.
So a weekend off coming up next weekend as we watch Pato Award try to find something for Santi Urrutia, but he's pretty content to finish where he's at right now and take control of the championship. Mid-Ohio is coming up next, another doubleheader on July 28th and 29th on an IndyCar weekend, then almost a month off before the short oval in St. Louis, just outside St. Louis, Gateway Motorsports Park. When I say just outside, it really is. It's a 10-minute drive from downtown, so that's one of the most convenient weekends, especially for an oval, that you're ever going to find if you want to stay in the city and find some other things to do and have a really quick trip to the racetrack.
And it's just awesome because it's, what, 4.5 hours west of Indianapolis where the majority of our fan base is, and I think that's a large part of the reason and why it was such a success last year. So I think it'll be another great event, and that's potentially an event where we could see a huge swing in the championship, because it's one of those tracks, much like Iowa Speedway, where if you're hooked up, you're going to have the greatest day of your life. But if you have a bad car around there, man, hang on for dear life.
And I can't wait to go to Portland International for the first time. IndyCar making a visit back there after being away for a while, and that's where the championship will be decided for the Mazda Road to Indy, all 3 steps. We were talking about the Pro Mazda race, and certainly Rinus VeeKay gets the accolades for sweeping, but really the most attention for the weekend went to a young British driver, Harrison Scott, who's already won a couple of times, and this blew up social media. What a frightening crash here.
And he's it's just brutal here. He just climbs on initially on the back of Antonio Serravalle and then on the back of 2 Team Pelfrey cars.
That was yesterday.
And what's so astonishing, look at the AMR IndyCar safety team already running to the scene here, mere seconds after he's landed and still sliding towards the tire barriers. They are running towards him, and he miraculously walked away unscathed and actually took green flag for today's Pro Mazda race as well.
We saw something somewhat similar with R.C. Ederson in Indy Lights a few years ago in that same area. I think he even got a little more altitude coming out of that and was okay. But what a testament to, in this case, these cars and all the safety that everyone has taken great measures to ensure is the safest it can be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And IndyCar and Anderson Promotions have done such a good job in making sure initially that this Dallara IL-15 was a safe car, but then when they rolled out the new USF 2000 car in 2017 and the new Pro Mazda car this year, that safety takes #1 priority and everything else comes after that. And I think they've done a great job in that. And the fact that Harrison Scott was able to land on his helmet essentially, or on the roll hoop, and come away unscathed is just great. And final lap here now though for Santi Urrutia, no problem for him.
He does have potential lap traffic right in front of him. That's Dalton Kellett trying to stay on the lead lap. That is a few car lengths in front, but the advantage is quite comfortable. 2.5 seconds for Santi Urrutia on Pato Award. Aaron Telitz is in third. Way back from him, Ryan Norman running in fourth.
Bit of a lockup there for Dalton Kellett. Yeah, you don't want to get the race leader into any trouble here. Just a few more corners to go. So I think Santi Urrutia is probably going to let off a bit of steam, knowing that he's got a big enough gap where he doesn't need to try and clear the car here of Dalton Kellett. Just 3 corners to go.
Santi Urrutia still is only 21 years old. In his 3rd year in Indy Lights, a 2-time runner-up. His 2nd win of the season is going to move him even closer to the championship. Checkered flag. Santi Urrutia has won race 2 in Toronto and still has hope in the 2018 championship. Pato Award strengthens his advantage, coming home 2nd. Aaron Telitz also on the podium.
And look at the Santi Urrutia fans. All the fans from Uruguay come out to every single race and always come out in force. They're some of the most passionate fans that I've ever seen, and he truly is a national hero in Uruguay. He really, really is.
Very impressive drive today for Santi Urrutia, and a great day for Belardi Auto Racing. We saw Brian Belardi 1st and 3rd for his team. Andretti Autosport hadn't won here since 2011. They won yesterday with Pato Award. They get a 2nd place result with Award today. We'll hear from the winner coming up in just a moment. Check the championship and plenty more from north of the border. Stay with us on NBCSN. Welcome back to Toronto, Ontario, Canada, where the doubleheader weekend is complete. 2 different winners for the first time in 4 years. Race number 2 belongs to Santiago Urrutia.
And still a nice bit of consistency here for Aaron Telitz here after a struggle earlier on this year, back on the podium. That's good for him to see, and Ryan Norman backing up that podium position yesterday with a 4th.
Championship mixed up just a little bit. We'll get to that, but first, let's go to Victory Lane. Katie Hargett is there to greet the winner.
And Kevin, 2nd win for Santi Urrutia in his 3rd season in the Indy Lights Series. Santi, we talked to your team owner, Brian Belardi, during the race. He said he was most impressed with the rhythm you were driving with. Where did that come from?
Yeah, finally we got the win. I mean, we've been struggling, and yeah, happy for the team. They did a great job. You know, I was pushing because I don't want to get disconcentrated on the race. Pato was pushing at the beginning. He was quicker than me. So yeah, that was my strategy, just push 100% all the race long. It was tough. I mean, it's hot out there, but yeah, happy for the team and for me, my sponsors, Massa, Cooper Tire, everyone that gave us this chance to be here. So I'm coming. I think I have chance again in the championship. Still 5 races to go. So my goal would be win those 5 races and see what happens then.
It was a great weekend for Belardi Auto Racing, guys, both drivers on the podium.
That seems like a solid plan. Win the rest of the races, and if that happens, I like your chances of winning the championship.
Indeed, and it is still within range. Exactly to Santi's point, he is very much within range still of the championship, but he needs to go on a streak, and Pato Award and Colton Herta certainly need to have some clashes. Obviously, at this point in time, Victor Franzoni pretty much eliminated from the championship chase, as is Brian Norman and Aaron Telitz, but I still think it's going to be great seeing them at Mid-Ohio. It's a track where all of them get so much track time going into the weekend that it really is going to be an all-out battle.
The challenge for Colton Herta is, though, that he's got a broken thumb. and that's not going to be healed in 2 weeks.
Yeah, but I think it'll be good enough to the point where, as he said in the pre-race, that he can tape it up good enough to where he won't be as affected. And also keep in mind, Mid-Ohio is a much smoother track than Toronto, so a lot less chance for your hand to be kicked off the steering wheel.
Pato O'Ward, in his first year in Indy Lights, is his first full season after the partial. He can probably start to taste that championship, but you can't really get too far ahead of yourself.
No, you really can't. You just got to be so smart with the way you did it. And I think he put together, to be honest with you, a championship type race today, not taking any risks whatsoever, not putting the car in a bad position. And yeah, he's looking good. There he is with his dad, Patricio, and just enjoying the moment.
8th podium of the season for Pato O'Ward to go along with his 5 wins. Santi Urrutia gets win number 2. Coming up next, Mecum Auctions Top 10 Pickup Trucks. Indy Lights continues from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. A doubleheader coming up in 2 weeks. It will air Tuesday, July 31st at 6 p.m. Eastern here on NBCSN. For more information on Indy Lights, go to roadtoindy.info. For Katie Hargett and Anders Krohn, I'm Kevin Lee. Pato O'Ward wins race number 1, and congratulations, Santi Urrutia taking race 2 in Toronto.